At the time of filming this video, I am 41 years old, and if I could go back and talk to my 20-year-old self to give advice on how to play jazz a lot faster, this is exactly what I would say. Welcome to Jazz Guitar Lessons, where we help guitarists learn jazz faster, express themselves more fluently, and have fun along the way. My name is Mark, and if you're looking to learn jazz, form better practice habits, and especially if you enjoy a French accent, make sure to subscribe. Alright, young Mark, this is the one hardest to swallow pill. It's good to have good guitar technique, to have good gear and stuff, but 90% of progress that will happen you're playing takes place on the tunes and specifically the chord progressions to the tune. That's it. The tunes are where it's at because we get context. We get the minor 2/5s, the major 2/5s, we get parts of blues progression, we get the passing diminish, we get the this, we get the that. Where do they get it when they write a book about this stuff? They get it from context. So playing a lot on very specific context means that the standard progressions become like laboratories for you, young Mark, to play with these things. So the scales and the chords and the inversion, they take place over certain things. Same thing if I look at a Wes Montgomery solo I want to transcribe or at least learn, it's never just about the line, it's about the context of the line. So I will simplify your life, younger Mark, if you're watching this. If you look at an hour of practice, you should definitely be practicing 45 to 50 minutes within standards chord progressions. Whether it's the tunes for your next gigs, or it's just a blues progression, or it's just a blues progression with a variation, or it's an arpeggio technique that you're trying to put on all the things you are, it's got to be on the tunes. It's got to be. It's got to be. There's no... That's the hardest pill to swallow, but it's the magic pill. So swallow that pill. Work on the tunes a lot of the time and just thank me later. One of my university teachers mentioned about Bbop that they took them to the extreme. So yeah, Charlie Parker and Dizzy and Miles and stuff were playing really fast tempos, like 300. But at the same time, they played a lot of ballads. So a 40 BPM ballad, I think, is as challenging, if not more, than an up-tempo. So it's important in jazz to push yourself, younger Mark, to go towards the extremes, because playing around 100 or 120 BPM is somewhere in the middle. It's good as a testing ground. It's good as a learning ground, say, to put things together. But as soon as possible, crank up and crank down your tempo so you can work on these extremes, because that's really where your skills and abilities will develop, not just technically, but also in the ears. Context is everything. That one is easy because I've already talked about it a little, that it's important to play on tunes, but also context in terms of analysis. Whenever I come across a chord progression or a certain mode application or scales, whatever, the question's always like, okay, where did that come from? And where's it going to? Because that will dictate how the label of it, the usage of it, or the importance of it. So don't be misled. Sometimes you'll see a chord and say, well, I think that's a diminished 7 chord. I'm like, yes, but it starts on a D sharp note and that's actually a B chord. Why is that? Because we're playing Autumn Leaves and it's a B7, right? So there's often, we will try to label things and narrow them down, but the broader context often gives us labels, names, and importance. So anything we play only matters within a flow. The flow is like the current. We work here, we're going there, and we're here, and then we're going to go to that next thing. As a younger jazz player, I think I was often playing some tentative chords and scales. I would play a chord during a bass solo and in a way like almost apologize for the chord while I was playing it. So that reflects and mirrors a perhaps lack of confidence I had. I did a lot of things just to try, and in a way that you could feel the belief that, oh, I'm not good enough in my playing, which is fascinating, right? So if I think I'm not good enough in my playing, it does mean also that, and that's like an open heart YouTube channel. Thank you guys for watching. It means that there's inner belief about myself unrelated to the guitar, just going like, hey, you're not worthy. You know, it's sort of a hopelessness type of, I'm not good enough. Thank God I'm actively working on these things, but this is an interesting thing to look at any musical measure to go like, oh, this is what's happening, and it's only a mirror of real life, actually. Make it look easy, young Mark. Make it look easy. I'm going to pick like Wayne Gretzky, pick any athlete. It's not even in music. And when these guys do it at the highest level, it just looks easy. It is not. It is not, but they make it look easy. So really successful improvisers they don't necessarily look frantic. Although people say, well, I watch Metheny play. I know he's a bit cramped and whatever, but he's very chill at the same time. So there's an amount of calm and chill and cool and sort of each thing in its own time that comes from true mastery. So that's what we're looking at. And I think for me as a younger player, I was trying to force things and I was not necessarily calm, and I was going, it has to look hard, or at least like I got to show off, like maybe cringe and go like, yeah, because it's hard. But actually it's quite the opposite. My favorite players, you watch them, Ed Bickert, Wes Montgomery, Jim Hall, Kenny Burrell. Let's not put Matheny in that category. These guys, they just sit there and they let it come out. It's incredible how physically they're relaxed. And some of my best students shout out, like I see some of you guys in the video. I think I talked to Neil recently. It's like, yeah, super solid posture. There's none of that. There's no tension in the arms and anywhere. And even if what we're playing is not yet at the level which we want, the body relaxation is a huge, huge piece of it. There's this workout I published on jazz guitar lessons, oh my God, probably 10 or 15 years ago. And it's to show 15 or 16 progressions on which to improvise. And I go like, yeah, you guys should do key of the week, right? So we start with a 1-6-2-5, we do a blues, and then
we do a this, and then we do a Lady Bird, a backdoor progression to a minor one, to the passing diminishes and minor 2-5s.
And eventually I go, well, you should do this on a key each week, right? You're in C now, and next week go up in the cycle of fourths. So in 12 weeks, you'll be back at C. So that was good for me back then. But the main takeaway would be, I first had to be able to play on the basics in one key first. So I'll sort of spell it out for my younger Mark, like before you start to make it very complex and go in all of these keys. Younger Mark, please start with the C key, 1-6-2-5, 2-5-1, blues, and really narrow it down so you can work on this for like 6 months until like, yeah, I hear the changes. It's really sounding good. I'm solid. I can comp. I can play some of the chords and scales. And eventually, it's best to go to 2 or 3 keys before doing all the 12 keys, because you have to play everything in all the keys. Like, it's not wrong for people aspiring to be professionals. But at the same time, if I started with C and really did a good job, I could go to F and G and maybe A or E and do a few keys and get really solid in those before I expand. Truly mastering C major really means that I have a home to get back to. It's like a port. You're at C and then you have the port. So you can hear and relativize everything in different keys if your key of C is really, really solid. And C is just the one for me. Your home key may be G major or whatever. It doesn't matter. But that's a big takeaway. I often encounter students that want to do the ear training softwares, where you have the app and you use recognize as perfect fifth or third. That's cool. It's a good tool. But at the same time, I think the pattern recognition, it's important for me to state the big lesson, the big takeaway I would tell my younger self is, you can identify these things by pattern and by sound and by feel of them or color, even if you don't yet have a label. You know how it feels to go from a 2 to a 5. 2-5, 2-5, repeat it a few times, like, oh, that's how it sounds. So when it comes up, it may not be that I can hear it and write it down immediately, but at least I can recognize. So this ties into the like deeply lesson, if you will, but at the same time, the theory, the label of it only comes after. And I think that's true for music history in general. It's like we came up with the theory to explain what we found sound good, and seldom do we have like the theory as the groundworks for how we have intuition and composition and inspiration. So we really, that's sort of a flipping on its head for me, which is, hey, it came here first, and then we're going to find a way to explain it, but the explanation may not like really make sense. But this, what I hear and what I sing in the shower always makes sense, because I'm not singing Phrygian in the shower, right? I'm not singing drop 2 inversions with passing diminish in the shower. I'm singing Fly Me to the Moon like Sinatra, right? So that's a big takeaway as well. First actual college one-on-one private lesson I had of my career was with Michael, and he studied under Mick Goodrick, which was tremendous, right? And he went to Mick Goodrick in the 80s for private lessons. He would drive down to Boston and go like, yeah, I want to learn stuff, whatever. Michael was already really well-versed, like a seasoned player at that time. And Mick took a thing, maybe a metronome or something, the practice room, and said, you're looking at this, but you have to look at that way, and that way, and that way, and from the bottom, etc. So perspective is everything, in that whenever there's a piece of material, like a chord or a scale or a part of a song, it can always be so many things. So my quest as a player has been to find the common trunk, like the tree trunk with the bark, like this is where it's at, and to eventually find out that there's so many leaves that can come out of that tree. But if I'm stuck at seeing a leaf, another leaf, and I have to amass all that information, it doesn't make sense. But when I see what's common between all these things, then I can I can let my creativity flow better, because one thing is always repurposed. Whether it's a line I'm playing or a chord, it's never just that one thing. It's always multiple things, which was a lesson Mick Goodrick gave Michael back then in the 80s. So I already touched on this earlier in the video. The mistakes, no one remembers them except you, but nothing is ever as bad or even actually as good as I think. The thing is just is. And often I'll overinflate my ego, listen to something while I'm playing, I'm like, wow. And then I grab the recording of that jam session or gig and go like, yeah, it wasn't that good. It's like, I thought it was way better than what it was, right? That moment or that line or that chord, I thought I'd been very clever. So things are only what I add importance to is the thing that I'm going to overinflate, but none of that is actually real. It's my own inner mental game of ego that's making a thing good or a thing bad. It's like the things just are. And I know this is very Buddhist, it's very Zen, but that's actually a big takeaway of my life. Effective solo strategies go from having pauses in the right spots. And I had a lesson in college with Charles, our improv teacher, where he had us write down on paper 4 choruses of How High the Moon solo in G major. And, after like 2 or 3 choruses, you sort of run out of gas. Like, what else am I going to write and play? So I had guide tones to which I would have pick up in 16th notes and this and fancy stuff. I think my solo was okay or good, but it was not great. And when I sat down with Charles, he just said like, look, that line's good, that you see you have 5 lines that are really good. Cool. You know what you're lacking? You're missing a release. I'm like, yeah, but there's a rest right there. No. You're missing the emotional release. So phrases need to breathe in jazz improv. This is such a crucial takeaway in that it may be harmonically correct. I'm playing in the right scale, the right resolution, the 2/5, this, the diminished. Yeah, it's all there. But the real deal is when that idea is passing and there's a rest and it could be digested by myself and the audience, the band members, myself and the audience. When this occurs, the magic is there. There's a phrasing, it's like a broad stroke of a paintbrush, right? And there's this idea, it comes out, we let it go, and then on to the next thing. So emotional resolutions are really, really strong. For me, in that written solo, I would have needed 2 or 3 beats of rest for things to be fully digested. I saw some Keith Jarrett solos written on paper where he's got just an 8-note rest. And that's all you need to be fully emotionally released about the previous idea. It's context dependent, but we have to remember that machine gun style, like Pat Martino, works for Pat Martino and certain other very busy players, but most often than not, the most impactful lines and improvisations have a lot of rests. I wish I could go back 20 years and tell myself this. Seriously, it's been as genuine and authentic probably I've ever been on YouTube. Please like and subscribe and watch. We have 100 more of free lessons about chords, scales, improvisation, chord melodies. We have a bunch of standards already filmed. Also follow us on Facebook. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I will see you soon on Jazz Guitar Lessons. Improve your jazz guitar playing with a real teacher. See you next time. Take care.